The sirens screamed through Pelican Bay State Prison like a war zone alarm. Red lights flashed down the long concrete hallway as guards rushed in, shouting orders. 2 inmates, one from Pelican Bay's North Block, another from San Quentin, were locked in a brutal stare-down inside the visiting yard. Their fists were clenched, their bodies tense, and everyone around them froze. This wasn't supposed to happen. Prisoners from different facilities almost never met face to face. But on that day, during a statewide transfer program, a group of San Quentin inmates had been temporarily brought to Pelican Bay's secure unit. The air was heavy with old grudges, rival gang colors, and quiet whispers that felt like sparks near gasoline. A man named Torres, tall, tattooed, and known for leading a prison crew called the Bay Kings, stepped forward. "You think San Quentin runs this yard?" he growled. Opposite him, a lean man named Rico from San Quentin's South Block didn't flinch. "We run wherever we stand," he said calmly. The silence broke like glass. In an instant, chaos exploded. Inmates shouted, fists flew, and metal trays crashed against the floor. Guards yelled for lockdown. Pepper spray filled the air. Torres lunged at Rico, but before he could land a hit, a guard fired a warning shot into the ceiling. The blast echoed like thunder through the concrete halls. The crowd scattered. Guards tackled inmates to the ground, shouting over the alarm. Rico was dragged away, coughing and bleeding from his nose. Torres was pinned under 2 guards, shouting something that chilled everyone who heard it. "This isn't over. Pelican Bay never forgets." And as the cell doors slammed shut one by one, a single sound filled the block, slow, deliberate clapping coming from inside one of the solitary cells. No one could see who it was, but every man there went quiet, realizing something much bigger had just begun. The lights flickered once, twice, and then everything went dark. 3 days earlier, the prison had been calm, at least on the surface. The warden of Pelican Bay had agreed to temporarily house a group of San Quentin inmates while their own facility underwent repairs. It was a risky move. Everyone knew Pelican Bay was home to California's most dangerous and isolated prisoners, men who had spent years in solitary confinement, hardened by silence and control. Among them was Torres, who'd been in the security housing unit, SHU, for nearly 8 years. He didn't talk much. He didn't have to. His name carried weight, his orders moved quietly through the prison walls. But when he heard that San Quentin inmates were being transferred in, his calm cracked. To him, San Quentin meant history. Old rivals, broken deals, and betrayal that dated back years. He'd lost a brother there in a yard stabbing long ago. Meanwhile, Rico, one of San Quentin's transferred inmates, had his own reasons for anger. He blamed Pelican Bay's men for a riot that left 3 of his closest friends dead. When he learned they'd be sharing the same space, he took it as a challenge, not a warning. Guards noticed the tension but thought they could handle it. Keep 'em separate, keep it quiet," one officer said. But rumors in prison travel faster than radio signals. Whispers turned into plans, plans turned into weapons made from scraps of metal. That night, a coded message moved through the cell blocks. "Tomorrow, the yard decides who's real." And so, when the morning came, both Torres and Rico walked into the same yard, each thinking the other wouldn't walk out. But what neither man knew was that someone else was pulling the strings. Someone locked deep inside solitary confinement. Someone who had been waiting years for both sides to meet. When the blackout hit after the riot, that man finally spoke through the vent. "Phase 2 begins now." The power outage lasted 12 minutes, but in a prison like Pelican Bay, that felt like a lifetime. When the lights flickered back on, chaos had already spread through multiple units. Cells that should have been sealed were mysteriously unlocked. Guards scrambled, trying to regain control. Torres and Rico were both thrown into solitary confinement, placed on opposite ends of the SAHU. Neither could see the other, but both could hear the same faint voice echoing through the ventilation system, taunting them. "You both think you run this state," the voice said, "but the system runs you." It was from a man known only as Ghost, a former gang leader who'd once controlled both prison networks before vanishing into isolation years earlier. Ghost had no side now. He wanted revenge against both prisons for betraying him, and he was using the blackout to start a silent war. Days passed. Food trays went missing. Guards received anonymous notes claiming riots were planned. Tension grew until even the officers started sleeping with one eye open. Torres, pacing his cell, began to realize the truth. Ghost wasn't just trying to start a fight. He was trying to unite the prisons under his control. But that meant one thing. Either Torres or Rico had to fall. Through the vent, Rico's voice came softly one night. "They're playing us, man. Maybe we should stop fighting." Torres stayed quiet. Outside, thunder rolled across the northern California sky. The walls of Pelican Bay trembled, and in the distance, alarms began to sound again. The war between Pelican Bay and San Quentin was no longer just between inmates. It was between loyalty and survival. And as Torres took a deep breath, staring at the dark vent above him, a single message scratched into the concrete caught his eye. "Only one prison survives." Then came a loud click from the cell door lock, followed by silence. The silence after the click felt like the longest moment of Torres's life. He stood perfectly still, muscles tense, heart pounding in his chest. Then, another click. The heavy metal door of his solitary cell creaked open just enough to show a sliver of light from the hallway. No guard would ever open a SHU cell during a lockdown, which meant only one thing. Someone had hacked the system. Torres stepped out slowly, his bare feet silent on the cold concrete. Down the corridor, every other door was still sealed shut, except one, Rico's. The two men stared at each other across the dim hall, both half shocked, half ready for whatever came next. "You?" Rico whispered. "You opened this?" Torres shook his head. "Not me. Someone wants us out." Before they could speak again, the intercom buzzed to life, and Ghost's calm, eerie voice filled the entire SHU. "Congratulations. You've been chosen to finish what the state started. Pelican Bay versus San Quentin. No guards, no rules, no excuses. Just truth." Suddenly, loud metal clangs echoed through the walls. Somewhere deep in the facility, other doors were being opened too, inmates shouting, guards yelling. A full-blown internal breach. Torres clenched his fists. "He's turning us into his game." Rico nodded. "Then we end the game." The two men, former enemies, moved through the silent corridor, searching for Ghost's cell. They followed the sound of static and faint music leaking through the vents. Every hallway they turned down felt more like a maze than a prison. Finally, they reached the old isolation wing, unused for years. The air smelled of dust and rust, and there in the very last cell, they saw him, Ghost. He sat cross-legged on the floor, his long beard gray, eyes calm like he'd been waiting for this moment his whole life. Around him, old radio wires and prison tech parts were scattered like puzzle pieces. "I told them, boss. The prisons would destroy each other," Ghost said softly. "Now they'll listen." Torres stepped forward. "You caused the blackout." Ghost smiled faintly. "You think the power company did it?" Rico clenched his fists. "You're sick." "No," Ghost said, standing slowly. "I'm free. You two are the ones still wearing invisible chains." Outside, the sirens began again. Louder. Closer. guards were regaining control. Time was running out. Torres glanced at Rico. "We stop him now." But Ghost only raised his hands calmly. "Stop me! You already finished the plan for me." A sharp metallic explosion rocked the hallway. Dust and smoke filled the air as the ground shook beneath their feet. Torres and Rico hit the floor, coughing, trying to see through the haze. Ghost was gone, vanished. Only his voice remained echoing faintly from a speaker in the ceiling. "Pelican Bay or San Quentin, one of you will fall before the next sunrise." The smoke cleared just enough for Torres to see the faint glow of flames licking the far wall. The prison's alarms wailed again, this time in pure panic. He looked at Rico and whispered, "It's starting." Then the emergency lights cut out. Darkness swallowed everything once more.